Welcome back to our series, Questions from the Old Testament. Our question for today is anything too hard for the Lord? From Genesis 18:14. To give us a context of this question, we'll be reading verses 1 through 16. And the Lord appeared to him by the oaks of Mamre as he sat at the door of his tent in the heat of the day. He lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, 3 men were standing in front of him. When he saw them, he ran from the tent door to meet them and bowed himself to the earth and said, O Lord, if I have found favor in your sight, do not pass by your servant. Let a little water be brought, and wash your feet, and rest yourselves under the tree, while I bring a morsel of bread, that you may refresh yourselves, and after that you may pass on, since you have come to your servant. So they said, Do as you have said. And Abraham went quickly into the tent to Sarah and said, Quick, 3 seahs of fine flour, knead it and make cakes. And Abraham ran to the herd and took a calf, tender and good, and gave it to a young man who prepared it quickly. Then he took curds and milk and the calf that he had prepared and set it before them. And he stood by them under the tree while they ate. They said to him, Where is Sarah your wife? And he said, She is in the tent. The Lord said, I will surely return to you about this time next year, and Sarah your wife shall have a son. And Sarah was listening at the tent door behind him. Now Abraham and Sarah were old, advanced in years. The way of women had ceased to be with Sarah. So Sarah laughed to herself, saying, After I am worn out and my Lord is old, shall I have pleasure? The Lord said to Abraham, Why did Sarah laugh and say, Shall I indeed bear a child now that I am old? Is anything too hard for the Lord? At the appointed time I will return to you, about this time next year, and Sarah shall have a son. But Sarah denied it, saying, I did not laugh, for she was afraid. He said, No, but you did laugh. Then the men set out from there, and they looked down towards Sodom, and Abraham went with them to set them on their way. Our question in verse 14, is anything too hard for the Lord? I've preached a sermon in the past and have heard lessons on the topic of things God cannot do. The first thought we may have is, God is omnipotent and omniscient and every other omni. There's nothing he can't do. But a closer look reveals that there are indeed some things he cannot do. Not because it is so monumental or hard for him, but because it is against his very nature. For example, God cannot lie, Hebrews 6:18. God cannot change, James 1:17 and Malachi 3:6. God cannot sin, John 1:5 and Numbers 23:19. God cannot make a mistake, Deuteronomy 32:4. God cannot be tempted by evil, James 1:13. And God cannot be deceived, Hebrews 4:13, among others. Some may pose the question, can God create a rock big enough that even he can't move it? Aha! Busted! There is no God. Well, not so fast, Philosophy 101 student. You seek something that is self-contradictory and incoherent. It is as if to say, can God create a round square or a 5-sided triangle? But enough of those absurdities. God poses this question to Abraham in response to Sarah's laughing in disbelief at the thought of having a child at her age. We, being some 4 millennia removed and knowing how things turn out, seem rather sure of ourselves and wondering why both should be doubting. We may seem to be like spectators shouting from the sidelines, Abraham, you're talking to God Almighty. Believe him when he tells you this. Well, not so fast, Religion 101 students. After all these millennia and having the written word, why is it that we are slow to believe that there's nothing too hard for God? Just to bolster the case of God's ability to do hard things, you might want to read Genesis chapter 1 or Job chapters 38 through 41. I think a pretty good case could be made for their outside Abraham's tent. Let's come back to our current century and place ourselves in the position of the one who is presented with a challenge spiritually. Let's start with the nearly impossible task of finding someone who will believe the story of Jesus' resurrection. Can I find just one person who will listen? Can I get somebody to at least open the door to start a conversation? Impossible, you say? How about praying in faith when we ask God for opportunities and then living our daily lives with the expectation that it will happen? Consider what Jesus said in Mark chapter 11, verses 22 through 24. Jesus answered them, "Have faith in God. Truly I say to you, whoever says to this mountain, 'Be taken up and thrown into the sea,' and does not doubt in his heart, but believes that what he says will come to pass, it will be done for him. Therefore I tell you, whatever you ask in prayer, believe that you have received it, and it will be yours." I'm of the mindset that God is not in the "let me show you some really cool stuff" business any longer, like moving mountains and withering fig trees. It's not that he can't do it, but I rather think that he is really more interested in the souls of people and the saving of them. So when we are praying for opportunities to share our faith and we ask God with a certain incredulous or doubting that it can be done attitude, can't you almost hear that question being posed to us? Is anything too hard for the Lord? Are you asking in faith? And Lord willing, let's meet again tomorrow to look at some more questions from the Old Testament.